Hello Year 10. So today what we're going to have a look at is a flower dissection, and we're going to try and identify the different parts of a flower that's insect pollinated. So pollination is where pollen is transferred from one part of a plant to either the same plant, which is self-pollination, or another plant via the wind or an insect like a bee. So we need to know the different parts of the flower and think about how they link to the reproduction of the flower, so making more of its own type of plant. And I happen to have some lilies for us to have a look and dissect. So this is what the lily looks like when it's intact, and this is what it looks like when it's been dissected. And I've just got some different types of flowers that we can have a look at. And although I wouldn't recommend you go out and pick loads of flowers from your garden, it may be that you have got some flowers like old daffodils, if there's any left, that you can have a look at and try and identify these different structures. So first of all, what we've got are, a bit closer, the petals. And the petals are brightly coloured and they attract insects, which are going to help us with our pollinator. So these are the landing pads for our insects. Now what we've got here, and these are very, very distinctive in the lily, are pollen grains. Now pollen is the male reproductive gametes, so sex cells in the plant. So the orange, and you can actually see this on my hands, are the pollen grains. Okay. Now the pollen grains are made by this male reproductive structure here, and this is called the anther. So if we just swap over and have a look on this one here, this is the anther and this is the filament, the long stalk that the anther sits on. And this is the male reproductive part. And it sits in the plant so that the bees can come, and other pollinating insects come and land on the anther and pick the pollen up on their legs. The bees will then fly either to another plant or even will just go to another flower on the same plant. And then the bee will land on this structure here. Now, incidentally, what the bee is actually getting from the flower is honey from the nectaries, which are down here, which you might see in a minute. But the bee incidentally lands on this structure here, sticky, okay? And this is called the stigma. And the pollen then grows a long pollen tube down this structure here. If I swap over, you can see it's dissected out here. The pollen grows down this structure here, and this structure is called the style. And right at the bottom of the style, we have the female ovary. All this is the female parts, but if we look here, we have the ovary. And inside the ovary are the ovules, also known as eggs. And the pollen will grow a pollen tube down and will hopefully fertilise those ovules and produce the seed. Some plants, some flowers on the base here have a structure called a sepal, and that protects the flower before when it's in bud. Don't know whether we can see the remains here of one. Not so obvious at all here. Okay, so just to recap, petal for the insects to land on, anther produces the pollen, filament is what holds the anther up and accessible to the bees, stigma, part of the female reproductive system in the plant, style, going down to ovary, female part of the reproductive system with the ovules all inside. Now here is my dissection diagram, and one of the things that you are going to do is to produce your own labelled diagram of an insect pollinated plant. Thank you.